Hey warriors, have you ever met someone who barely said 10 words in an entire conversation and somehow you still think about them weeks later? They weren't the loudest person in the room. They didn't perform. They didn't try to be memorable at all. And that's exactly why they were. Here's the strange part. Their pull had almost nothing to do with looks, jokes, or confidence in the way we usually define it. It came from somewhere quieter, somewhere most people never think to look. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from what happens to us, but from our judgment about it." Attraction runs on the same hidden wiring. It isn't built from trying. It's what's left over once a person stops performing. Today, 10 habits, not tricks, not manipulation. Real shifts most people never notice they're missing, in themselves or in the people who quietly pull a room toward them. A few of these will feel obvious the second you hear them. One or two might sting a little because they'll point at something you already suspected about yourself and never said out loud. That's fine. That's actually the point. Some of this you'll recognize in people you already know. A quiet co-worker everyone somehow trusts more than the loud one. A friend nobody can quite explain why they gravitate toward. By the end, you'll probably know exactly why. Like this if you want more of this. Comment which habit you think you already have. And don't skip ahead. These build on each other. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am quietly magnetic. Number 1 is simpler than you'd expect. Number 1. Make people feel easy around you. Think of the last person who made you feel completely at ease. Go on, picture their face. Chances are they didn't say anything clever. They didn't do anything really. You just exhaled around them. That's habit 1, and everything else on this list is built on top of it. If people feel measured, rushed, or quietly judged around you, nothing else matters. You could nail every other habit on this list and it wouldn't save you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, in a journal he never meant for anyone else to read, that a person's worth is measured by what they pursue. He wasn't chasing admiration. He wasn't performing virtue for an audience of one. And that, oddly, is what made him easy to be around. No hidden test, no invisible bar to clear. You felt the opposite too. Someone silently sizing you up, waiting for a wrong word so they can pounce. Exhausting, right? Now think about someone who just lets you be a little awkward without flinching. That's the person you remember. Drop your own guard first. You can't ask someone to relax while you're bracing for their judgment. It shows up in the smallest places. How you respond when someone says something slightly wrong. Do you correct it right away or let it pass so they can recover on their own? Whether you rush to fill every silence out of your own discomfort or let a quiet moment just exist, people calibrate how safe they feel with you off dozens of tiny signals like that, almost none of them spoken out loud. You probably don't clock yourself doing any of it. They clock it constantly. There's a version of this you've probably lived on the other end. A room where everyone's a little too polished, a little too careful with their words, and you find yourself editing every sentence before it leaves your mouth. Nobody said anything wrong. It just felt unsafe to be unfinished. Now think of a room where that pressure wasn't there, where a half-formed thought was fine. Which room do you actually want to walk back into? If that one already hit harder than you expected, subscribe. We've got 9 more to go. Number 2, listen like you actually care. Quick question. When was the last time someone listened to you and you could actually feel it? Not nodded, not waited for their turn. Actually listened. If you're struggling to remember, that's the point. Most conversations aren't conversations at all. They're two people taking turns talking while they wait to talk again. The psychologist Carl Rogers spent decades studying what actually makes people feel understood in a conversation, and his findings weren't about advice at all. People rated a conversation as meaningful almost entirely based on whether they felt fully heard while they were speaking, regardless of what, if anything, the other person said back. Not the wisdom of the response, just the quality of the attention that came before it. Real listening is uncomfortable at first. It means letting a sentence finish without jumping in, asking a follow-up that has nothing to do with steering things back to you, noticing what someone didn't say, the pause before they answered, the subject they skipped a little too fast. Here's what almost nobody talks about, though. Listening well doesn't just help the other person, it changes you. You start noticing who lights up talking about their work and who goes flat, who's asking for advice and who just wants to be heard. That kind of attentiveness is so rare now that people remember it for years. Try this. Someone tells you about a rough week, and your instinct is to say, "That happened to me too," and grab the spotlight. Don't. Stay with them a beat longer. Ask what made it hard. You'll watch something shift in their posture. Relief, mostly. The relief of being seen instead of just heard. Watch what happens in a group setting, too. A side conversation pulls focus. Do you drift toward the louder voice, or stay anchored to the person you were already talking to? That single choice says more than most sentences ever could. There's a physical side to this most people never think about. Your body listens before your mouth ever gets involved. Leaning in slightly, angling your feet toward the person, not the exit, letting your hands go still instead of fidgeting with a phone or a pen. None of it is conscious for the person doing it well. It's just where their body settles when the attention is real instead of performed. And here's the thing, people read that posture faster than they read your words. You can say all the right things and still come across as half checked out if your body is telling a different story. Picture two co-workers hearing the same complaint from a client. One nods along, waits for a gap, then pivots straight to solutions. The other asks one more question first, something like, "What part of this has been the most frustrating?" Same complaint. Completely different experience for the client walking away. One felt handled, the other felt heard. Only one of those two co-workers gets requested by name the next time something goes wrong. So far, we've covered two habits, and neither one required you to say a single impressive word. Making people feel easy and actually listening. Number 3 is where your voice starts doing the work. Number 3, speak with calm certainty. Volume isn't confidence. Speed isn't either. You know the type. Talks fast, talks loud, and still somehow sounds unsure, like they're outrunning their own doubt. Now think of the opposite. Someone who speaks slowly, pauses before answering, and every word lands harder than a shouted argument ever could. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius that it's a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence. Not silence out of fear. Silence as discernment, choosing your words because they add something, not because the gap needs filling. Try this comparison. "I think maybe this could possibly work, if that's okay," versus "this will work." Same idea, completely different weight. The first one is hedging so hard it disappears before it lands. This isn't about pretending certainty you don't feel. Fake confidence collapses fast, and people sense it immediately. It's about cutting the padding, the sort of. The nervous laugh at the end of a sentence that undoes everything you just said. Pace matters as much as words. Rushed speech says you're afraid of losing the room. Slower speech says the opposite. I have room to think, and I trust you'll still be here when I finish. Leave a beat of silence after you make a point instead of rushing to fill it. It'll feel strange the first few times. Do it anyway. One thing to watch for. That upward lilt at the end of a sentence, like every statement is secretly a question. It asks for permission nobody required. Notice it in your own voice. It's usually the first sign that certainty hasn't fully settled in yet. Tone matters here too, maybe more than pace. A flat, monotone delivery undercuts certainty just as badly as a nervous rising pitch does. What tends to land best sits in between. Low even, but with some natural variation, the way someone actually speaks when they're thinking, not reciting something they rehearsed in the mirror. If you've never heard your own voice back in a real conversation, it's worth doing once. Uncomfortable, but revealing. You'll hear exactly where the doubt sneaks in. None of this means never expressing uncertainty. Real confidence includes, "I don't know," when that's the honest answer. The difference is saying it once, plainly, instead of wrapping it in 6 layers of apology first. Watch how this plays out in a disagreement. 2 people can hold the exact same opinion, and one gets taken seriously while the other gets talked over. Usually, it isn't the argument itself that decides it. It's whether the person delivering it sounds like they need you to agree or simply states what they believe and lets it exist on its own. Neediness undercuts even a correct point. Calm delivery gives good ideas the chance to actually be heard instead of getting lost underneath anxious delivery. Calm certainty was never about having the loudest opinion in the room. It's about having settled opinions you don't need to defend with volume. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My words carry weight. Number 4. Keep your face soft and open. Before you say a word to anyone, your face already has. A tight jaw, narrowed eyes, a flat, pressed mouth. People read it in under a second, often without knowing they're doing it, and they adjust how they approach you accordingly. Your inner state surfaces whether you want it to or not, and nowhere more honestly than in your face. The uncomfortable truth is, most people have no idea what their resting expression actually looks like to a stranger. It's not intentional, it's just where the face lands when nothing's actively performing warmth. And that default shapes every first impression before a single word is exchanged. This isn't about faking a smile. People clock a performed smile instantly, and it tends to unsettle more than a neutral face does. It's subtler than that. Relaxed eyes, an unclenched jaw, a default of mild curiosity instead of mild suspicion. The real test isn't your face when things are calm, it's your face under pressure. A mistake gets pointed out, a plan falls apart. Does your expression harden instantly, or does it stay open, even while you're clearly working something out? People learn from that single moment whether stress makes you unsafe to be near. Try this the next time you're standing somewhere waiting, a line, a lobby, a meeting that hasn't started yet. Notice what your face is doing without asking your permission first. Most people find it's tighter than they expected. Soften it, not into a grin, into something open, something that isn't quietly bracing for whatever's coming next. Small adjustment. It changes how many people feel comfortable enough to approach you at all. The effect compounds in ways you won't notice right away. Strangers ask you for directions more. Co-workers linger near your desk a little longer than the conversation strictly requires. None of it dramatic, all of it quietly adding up, one softened expression at a time, until people just describe you as easy to be around without knowing exactly why. Before we move on, be honest with yourself for a second. Which one of the first 4 have you already got without even trying? Drop the number in the comments. It's worth knowing where you're already strong before we get to where you're not. Number 5. Use eye contact naturally. Quick one. Forced, unbroken eye contact doesn't read as confident. It reads as intense, sometimes unsettling, like you're proving something to yourself more than connecting with them. Albert Mehrabian's research on nonverbal communication gets oversimplified constantly, but the core idea holds. How you look at someone communicates almost as much as what you say to them. Natural eye contact has rhythm. Hold their gaze while they speak, especially at the parts that matter most. Then let your eyes drift, maybe to think before returning. Constant, unblinking eye contact doesn't look like attention. It looks like calculation. Where you look during a pause matters too. Down usually reads as discomfort. Slightly up and to the side reads as genuine thought. Small distinction, big difference in how you land. Start small. A barista, a cashier. Let it feel human, not like a technique you're running. Context changes the rules a little, and that's worth saying plainly. What reads as warm in a casual setting can feel confrontational in a tense one. A grieving friend needs something softer and slower than a colleague pitching you an idea. Reading that difference without overthinking it is what separates presence from a technique performed on autopilot. There's also the version of eye contact nobody asks about. What your eyes do when someone else is talking in a group and the attention isn't currently on you. Do they drift to your phone, or do you stay visibly present even when you're not the one speaking? People notice who's actually in the room and who's just physically present in it. You just picked up a habit most people never consciously think about, in about 200 words. Onto something people notice a little slower, but feel just as strongly. Number 6. Don't over-explain yourself. Notice how often people justify things nobody asked them to justify. Someone asks a simple question, and the answer arrives wrapped in 5 extra sentences of context nobody requested. It's built from anxiety, a fear that the bare answer won't be enough on its own. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly. Stop arguing about what a good person should be and just be one. He wasn't preaching rudeness. He was naming something sharper, that constant justification is often just approval-seeking wearing a disguise, and approval-seeking rarely lands the way we hope. Over-explaining sends a signal you didn't mean to send. It says, I'm not sure this was valid, so let me build a case before you challenge me. Ironically, that makes people trust the decision less, not more. I can't make it, but I'll see you next time. Carries more authority than the same sentence buried under 3 paragraphs of apology. This shows up everywhere once you start watching for it. Declining invitations, setting boundaries, explaining why you left a job. The urge is to preemptively defend against objections nobody has raised yet. Most of the time, nobody was going to push back at all. The over-explaining is what creates the scrutiny it was trying to dodge. Watch for the exact moment the urge kicks in. It's usually right after you catch a flicker of confusion on someone's face. That's when most people panic and start adding qualifiers. Pause there instead. Let it sit a second longer than feels comfortable. 9 times out of 10, they weren't judging you. They were just processing. Your rush to defend it is what suggested there was something to defend in the first place. None of this means you should go cold or vague with people close to you. Context still matters there. What changes is the instinct to preemptively defend a decision nobody's challenged yet. State it once, clearly, and let it stand on its own weight. If someone genuinely wants more, they'll ask, and you can give it without the anxious flood that usually shows up uninvited. There's an irony worth sitting with here. The people who over-explain the most are usually the ones with the least to actually apologize for. They're thoughtful, considerate, careful with others, and that same care gets twisted into a need to pre-justify everything they choose. The people who owe the most explanations, meanwhile, often give the fewest. Sit with that for a second. It says a lot about who actually needs to change this habit and who's been carrying it too heavily for too long already. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My words do not need defending. Here's something that might surprise you. The next 4 habits aren't really about how you come across at all. They're about what you protect, notice, and leave behind, mostly when nobody's grading you for it. Number 7. Have your own rhythm. Some people move through the day, reacting to whatever pulls at them next. A notification, a request, someone else's urgency, borrowed as their own. Cato the Younger is remembered less for what he wrote and more for how he lived, which makes him the right example here. He refused to be rushed, refused to bend, even while Rome fell apart around him. His contemporaries found it maddening at times. They also couldn't look away because his steadiness in chaos had its own gravity. This isn't about ignoring other people's needs or moving through life with zero regard for anyone else. It's about not letting every ping dictate your internal state, finishing a thought before switching tasks, eating a meal without 3 apps competing for your attention at the same time. Someone with their own rhythm feels stable to be around because you're not watching them get yanked in 6 directions at once. There's a trust that builds when a person seems anchored to themselves instead of reacting to whatever's loudest. Next time your phone buzzes mid-conversation, notice the urge to check it. Let it sit. Finish your sentence first. That pause, repeated enough times, becomes your baseline. And people feel the difference in how grounded you are, even if they can't name why. This isn't only about single conversations either. Some people's moods swing hard with whatever just happened. A good email sends them soaring. A stranger's comment online wrecks their whole afternoon. Others seem to have a baseline they return to fairly reliably, no matter what's happening around them. That baseline isn't the absence of feeling. It's something steadier underneath it, a sense of self that doesn't get fully hijacked by the last thing that occurred. People are drawn to that, the way they're drawn to shade on a hot day, without always knowing why it feels like relief. You can spot the difference in how someone walks into a room after a bad meeting. One version storms in, still carrying it, and the tension spreads to everyone nearby without a word being said. The other version has already processed it somewhere on the way over and walks in present, not performing calm, just actually at their own baseline again. That second version is rarer than it should be, and it's built, not born. Number 8. Take care of small details. Big gestures get noticed once. Small, consistent details get noticed for years. The friend who remembers how you take your coffee. The person who brings up a detail from 3 weeks ago, proving they were actually listening at the time. Minor in isolation. They accumulate into a reputation no single grand gesture could build alone. Picture the best hotel concierge or barista you've ever dealt with. It's rarely the one who did something extravagant. It's the one who remembered your order without you repeating it, or asked how the flight actually went after you'd mentioned a delay in passing. Nothing dramatic happened. You just felt for a second like a specific person instead of a transaction. That feeling is what this habit is actually built from. Showing up on time isn't just punctuality. It's a quiet statement that you value someone's time as much as your own. Remembering a small preference tells someone you were actually present in a previous conversation, not just waiting for your turn to talk. None of this needs grand effort. It needs attention, which is a different resource entirely. A short message the day after someone mentioned something hard, asking how a specific thing turned out instead of a vague, "How are you?" costs almost nothing, lands harder than people expect. And this is the part that resists shortcuts entirely. You can't fake noticing something. Either you actually registered that someone's dog was sick or you didn't, and no clever follow-up manufactures that memory after the fact. There's a compounding effect that's easy to underestimate. One thoughtful detail is nice. A pattern of them, stretched over months, builds a reputation as someone who genuinely pays attention. And that reputation ends up being one of the most attractive qualities a person can carry, quietly, without ever announcing it to anyone. The people in your own life you'd actually call thoughtful probably didn't earn that reputation with a big gift. Chances are it was something smaller. It's the small thing they somehow remembered months later that you'd half forgotten you'd even said out loud. This is also where consistency beats intensity every time. One grand romantic gesture, One impressive favor gets a reaction in the moment and fades fast. A pattern of small, unremarkable attentiveness builds something a single gesture never could. A settled sense that you're the kind of person who actually pays attention day after ordinary day, not just when there's an occasion demanding it. Number 9. Be selective with your energy. This one might sound a little cold at first. Stay with it. Not every conversation deserves your full self. Not every room deserves your best version. That sounds almost selfish until you realize it's actually one of the more protective habits on this entire list. Carl Jung described psychic energy as a finite resource, one that gets depleted by constant outward performance, particularly for people who lean introverted, overextend socially without protecting some reserve for genuine reflection, he argued, and you eventually hollow yourself out until there's nothing left for anyone, including yourself. Being selective doesn't mean being cold to strangers or withholding basic warmth from people who don't know you yet. It means recognizing that being on for every single interaction drains something that doesn't refill on its own. The people who seem effortlessly magnetic usually aren't performing equally for everyone. They save their fuller presence for what actually matters, and that scarcity is part of what makes their attention feel valuable when you get it. Notice which interactions leave you energized and which leave you hollow, even when nothing overtly bad happened. That's useful data. It doesn't mean cutting people off. It means adjusting how much of yourself you bring somewhere that consistently drains you, and saving the fuller version for people who actually receive it well. Recall the last time you gave everything to someone who barely noticed. Now, compare it to the last time you gave a smaller, more measured version of yourself to someone who valued it. Which one left you feeling more like yourself afterward? Most people, if they're honest, know the answer immediately. This habit is uncomfortable if you were raised to believe constant availability equals kindness. It doesn't. Chronic overextension just produces a worse, more depleted version of you in every interaction, including the ones that actually matter. Selectivity isn't selfishness. It's stewardship of something limited. This shows up in obvious places once you start looking. The friend who only calls when something's wrong. The group chat that drains you every single time, no matter how funny it is in the moment. None of these people are necessarily bad. Most have no idea what they're costing you. But knowing the cost and choosing where you spend yourself accordingly is the entire skill. And to be clear, this isn't permission to withdraw from everyone who isn't immediately rewarding. Some of the most important relationships in your life will go through stretches where they take more than they give, and that's simply part of caring about people. The habit is about noticing where the cost never gets returned, anywhere, ever, and adjusting your presence accordingly instead of pretending you don't notice. One more habit left. It's the one that quietly holds all 9 of the others together. Number 10. Leave people feeling better. Notice how you feel after spending time with different people in your life. Some interactions leave you lighter, others leave you strangely tired, even when the conversation itself was pleasant on the surface. That difference isn't random. Psychologists call it emotional contagion. Moods and emotional states transfer between people almost involuntarily, through tone, expression, energy, usually without either person consciously registering it's happening. If that's even partly true, every interaction you have is quietly depositing something into the other person, whether you mean it to or not. This doesn't mean forcing positivity you don't feel. Fake enthusiasm drains just as hard, and people usually sense the gap. It means something more specific. Making sure the person you just spent time with leaves a little more understood, a little less alone, a little steadier than before the conversation started. Think about the 2 kinds of people you've met, who each claim to be just being honest. One uses it as an excuse to unload criticism nobody asked for and calls it authenticity. The other tells you a hard truth, but somehow you still walk away feeling respected instead of diminished. The honesty was identical. The delivery and the care underneath it was not. That difference is the entire habit in miniature. Every habit on this list points here. Making people feel easy, listening without an agenda, speaking with calm weight instead of anxious filler, keeping your face open, meeting eyes naturally, not over-explaining, moving at your own pace, noticing small details, protecting your energy so what you give is real. All 10 converge on this single outcome. You don't need to remember anyone's name to have this kind of impact, though it helps. You need presence, real attention, and the discipline to bring your steadiest self into the room instead of your most anxious one. Do it consistently, and people start describing you as someone they feel calmer around without fully knowing why. Ask yourself this after almost any interaction. Did the other person likely walk away a little lighter or a little heavier? Not because you performed for them, because of how you actually showed up. That one question will reshape more of your behavior than any advice ever could. It's also, in a strange way, the most testable habit on this entire list. You don't need a personality test or a stranger's opinion to check your progress. Just that one question, asked honestly after the interactions that actually matter to you. Years from now, most people won't remember the exact words you said to them. They won't remember your best joke or your sharpest point in an argument. They'll remember how they felt walking away from you. That's the part that stays, and that's the kind of attractiveness that doesn't fade with time or looks or circumstance. None of these 10 habits are complicated. That's probably why so few people actually practice them. We assume magnetism is some rare trait you either have or don't. Really, it comes down to a handful of quiet, repeatable choices. Making people feel easy, listening fully, speaking with calm weight, keeping your face open, meeting eyes naturally, letting your reasoning stand without over-justifying it, moving at your own rhythm, noticing small details, protecting your energy, and leaving people a little better than you found them. You don't need all 10 today. Pick one. Practice it this week until it stops feeling deliberate and starts feeling like you. Then move to the next. The people who carry this kind of quiet presence didn't get there through one breakthrough weekend. They built it slowly, in ordinary moments nobody was watching. The way Cato held his ground when the room wanted him to panic. The way Marcus Aurelius kept returning to that same private notebook night after night just to remind himself who he was trying to become. That's the actual work, not a performance for an audience. A quiet, repeated return to your steadiest self until it stops being effort and simply becomes who you are. You already know which one of these 10 you're weakest at. You knew it before I named it out loud. That's usually the one worth starting with. None of it needs to be loud to work. That was the whole point from the first sentence of this video. The quietest people in the room are often the ones everyone remembers walking out. If that's the kind of person you're trying to become, subscribe. We've got a lot more to build together. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and comment which habit you're starting with this week.